Hello from Norway. It is day 14 of my quarantine, so I'm about finished with a travel based self quarantine that I've been under for the last 2 weeks. To celebrate that, I actually had to give myself a haircut, and I got rid of some of the scruffy. But yesterday I was out walking, and it got me thinking about some of the challenges that we're facing training indoors, because I know a lot of you are being pushed indoors, cyclists, runners, and so forth. I'm going to kind of concentrate on cycling just because maybe that's one of the biggest challenges right now is for the cyclists is maintaining some physical balance issues, different kinds of balance. I put that in quotes that I was thinking about. Now, one of them is that if you're a cyclist and you are a typical high level cyclist, then you don't do a whole lot of physical activity besides cycling. You walk around a bit, you get on your bike, you ride, you put the bike away, and then probably you sit on the sofa or lay on the sofa quite a bit if you're an elite cyclist. But one of the things we have to think about is bone density. Bone health depends on actually using the bones in a way where they get some, we call it ballistic loading, walking, running, jumping, weight bearing activities. And you don't get a lot of that in cycling. And now, when we're going indoors, you're getting even less because you're stuck indoors. The only exercise you may be getting is riding on the bike. And there is research that shows that bone density issues can become a problem for cyclists, particularly in times when they're not doing much of anything else. So, during this time, when you're riding, if for no other reason but for healthy bones, jump. Do some jumps, do some ballistic loading. You can do jumping jacks, you can do jump rope, different kinds of activities like that. If you can't get outside and walk and do all these normal activities of daily living, then at least incorporate some up and down vertical jumping into your day, every day or at least several days a week, to help maintain bone health in a time when we're not getting much stimuli. Another is muscular balance. Now, if you're a rower, if you're a cyclist, again, we're being thrown indoors, but it's always an issue, but now it can be even a bigger issue because you may not be doing the normal supplemental training that you should or you would be. But for these activities like cycling, like rowing, there is a strong tendency for the hip flexors, the torso, the muscles that, let's make sure I use the right hand here, we tend to get kind of crunched over in every activity, and we need to extend. Otherwise your hip flexors are going to tighten up, both rowing, cycling, the muscles of your torso, your back, and your abdominals get out of balance. So you need to stretch. You need to do some movements that are the opposite of the cycling position or the rowing position. Different kinds of activities that you probably do if you're part of a team normally. Well, don't stop doing them now. And if you aren't part of a team, then you need to add some of this activity in to maintain core stability. And the other thing is also just you need to get outside and walk on uneven ground, do some balancing activities, stand on one leg. Things like that are some of the best things you can do for just basic core stability. And this kind of stuff is disappearing from our routine when we're thrown indoors constantly. Now, the third point I want to make is this issue of intensity duration balance, because let's face it, it's going to be tempting to, let's say, shorten up the rides, make them more intense, just because a lot of you don't care a whole lot for sitting indoors on a trainer. And to some extent, that trainer time is probably more, let's call it dense, in the sense that there is no coasting. So if you're normally doing a 4-hour low intensity ride outdoors, then that may be the equivalent of a 3-hour ride indoors, because indoors you have no coasting time. And when I've looked at training files from elite cyclists doing big training camps, volume camps, there is a significant percentage, maybe 20% of a 6, 7, 8-hour ride is coasting, behind the wheel, going downhill, things like that. Well, indoors that won't be there. So you can adjust a bit, but you're still going to be tempted to shorten up the rides even more. Don't. We need the long rides. We need the low intensity volume, just like we need it outdoors. Do your time indoors. Whether you listen to audiobooks, good music, whatever. I listen to some acoustic classics today during a 3-hour ride, but we need that volume. We've still got to maintain that relationship between low intensity volume training and the high intensity work during these weeks or maybe months that we're going to be primarily training indoors. And then finally, I wanted to say something about energy balance. Now, again, because we're indoors, just because you train for 2 hours on the bike each day doesn't mean you're immune from gain weight, because our activities of daily living are probably going down in terms of the caloric expenditure that we have just moving our bodies around all day long, going up and down stairs, walking to and from, taking kids to school, all these different things that we would normally be doing, we're doing less of. And we can't fully compensate for that with an hour on the bike or 2 hours on the bike necessarily. So we got to pay a little bit of attention to that relationship between how much exercise we're actually getting and what we're eating, because I know being inside, it's going to be tempting to eat actually more at the same time we're doing less. So at least think about it. Most of us, a lot of us who train endurance a lot are kind of naturally, we just don't ever think about energy issues. We eat what we want and it's not a problem. We probably have to think about eating enough often. But now we're in a little bit different situation, so keep that in mind, and maybe pay a little bit of attention, weigh yourself if you're an athlete that is struggling to get this right. All right, so those are some thoughts I had on maintaining balance in different ways indoors. Keep the faith. Bye.